if you're a real estate investor that is either interested in cold calling or you are cold calling right now and you just want to shape up your tools and get a little bit better at it, or maybe you're someone that's done it before and stopped because you really don't believe in it anymore or you lost traction or whatever, today's episode is going to be very insightful in terms of the way that you should operate your cold calling processes and procedures. I got my good friend Jennifer Steward on the show today. She is an expert in the cold calling field. She has an organization that has virtual assistants that help with cold calling, and she implements that for teams. But she's also an expert cold caller herself because she was trained by some of the best, like John Martinez, Jerry Green, Brant Daniels, and many other good names. And she's been in this space for 9 years, specifically in the cold calling realm, closing deals and locking up all kinds of deals across the United States. And she's going to be talking about quite a few things, but some of the things that she really discusses is how to kind of carry conversations and get people to actually pick the phone up. So obviously it's one thing to have the conversation. Like you can take sales courses where you have scripts and all kinds of ways to close deals and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I really focus on in the conversation with Jennifer today is figuring out, like, how do we actually get people to pick up the damn phone, right? Like the data that we're using, the way that we're dialing them and that sort of thing. And so she gives really, really good insight on, actually, she has a method of a 3-dial method that she talks about to get people to actually pick up the phone, and then a good icebreaker method to actually break the conversation with them, because you don't want them to be annoyed with you and then you just jump in your script. She has a really good way to actually facilitate conversation and then kind of break the ice and bring down the defenses with the person on the other side of the phone. And I really enjoyed hearing her kind of break down. She gave a really good deal example as well of the way that she does that. So today's going to be a really, really good episode for cold calling if this is something that you really wanted to dig into and learn more about. Jennifer has a couple of services in terms of being able to placement for cold callers, and then she also does data. She's a private lender as well. So make sure you do check all that stuff out. Everything is going to be linked down in the description below. But without further ado, here's my friend Jennifer Steward. You guys enjoy and take some notes. Welcome back to the REI Marketing Weekly. It's your host, Josh Culler. And today I've got a very good one for you. Now, this person that I've got on the show here, we've been a part of this like very similar networks for years. And it's hilarious in a way that we have never actually had a conversation with each other, but we're going to make it happen today. So I've got Jennifer Steward on the line today. How you doing, Jennifer?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited that I finally get to meet and speak with the Mr. Josh Culler, the man behind all the videos that I see for a lot of different people. And it's exciting to truly be here and invited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You've made appearances on so many, it's funny you say that because you made appearances on so many pieces of content that we produce for our clients. So it's like, I know I just saw one recently of you were at one of the property walkthroughs with Daniil Clayman, Santa. So like, yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And you've been up in our neck of the woods and everything to speak with at Tom Olson's events and that sort of.
That's right. A true honor.
Absolutely. So it's good to have a like actual good conversation with you. And today we're going to be talking quite a bit about cold calling. Now, here's the thing. I'm gonna hand the mic over to you here in a second, but you being sort of an expert in cold calling and training virtual assistants in cold calling, I'm very curious about kind of the methods in which you approach cold calling when it comes to lead generation. Now, the primary audience that's listening right now are people that are marketing to generate motivated seller leads, and that could be through just about any marketing channel. I know cold calling was hot for some time, and
it was.
I believe that some people just from the pulse have dialed that back just a little bit, maybe regulations or it's too saturated or whatever it is. From a general standpoint, we're recording this in February of 2025. How do you feel like the cold calling landscape is shaping up right now?
Great question. So do you remember on Forrest Gump after the hurricane and the only boat left is Jenny number 1? And he is cleaning up. And that's what's going on with the people who are cold calling right now. I have full transparency. I've had total about 300 cold calling clients in my career as an agency. And maybe personally, maybe I've called for like 30 outside of that. And right now, again, full transparency, I think last I checked, I have like 35 cold calling clients, right? Which is honestly more than I've ever had. But I think part of that's because at one time, and I think part of that is because I have captured this market share, right? This market share. But also, I mean, I have 180 virtual assistants because I don't just do cold calling real estate. I do cold calling in any type of industry where people need someone to do phone sales for them. So it could be lighted mirrors out of Russia or rubber factories out of China. I knew a toilet paper manufacturer out of India. And so, just maybe 20% of my workforce typically is dedicated to real estate only.
Gotcha.
That being said, the ones who are doing cold calling right now in real estate, I don't have anyone complaining to me, Jen, I'm not doing any deals, which is what I used to hear years ago. Oh, we'd call and people say, oh, I'm so sick of getting calls like this. I get 5 calls a day. In, 2018, 19, 20, 21. You don't hear that anymore. So it is effective. And I like that. I like the fact that not as many people are doing it. And I have outlasted many competitors because my competitors try to do things cheaply. Also, they didn't lead from the front like I do. I mean, I used to call from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday doing calls myself because I was getting paid hourly and I needed the money. So that's why I did it. I just needed the hourly wage to pay the bills. And that was before inflation, right? So, or runaway inflation even. I don't care what the PPI or CPI says. It's runaway inflation. So I have all those hours, and where other agency owners don't have the ability to lead from the front and really train their people. I mean, I sat in their seats, so I know how to have those conversations. I know how to keep people on the phone. I know how to get the information that I need in order to see whether or not they're truly motivated and if this deal is closable or not. Yeah. So although it is not as in vogue as it was, that is a blessing because I've never had higher client retention. My competition is gone. And the people who are still doing it, I mean, the clients are killing it, and I can't tell you how many great workers I picked up because other cold calling agencies closed their doors. I don't want to name names, right? Because they're my friends, and they're like, "Hey, Jen, we close our doors, and can you please take our VAs because they're good people. They need a good home." And that's how I found most of my people was from that right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very interesting conversation. I feel like what's funny too is we're talking specifically about cold calling, but I've had like data providers on here and people that run mail houses and stuff like that. And almost the same conversation is being had throughout even like the whole industry in different marketing channels, which is interesting. So like some of the people I've talked about with their mail, direct mail, they're saying like, yeah, a lot of people have pulled back on direct mail. It's starting to come back up, but definitely within the last 2 years, it dialed way, way down.
Way down.
So that's been a very interesting thing to kind of observe over the last couple of years. Could be cash, right? Like cash might be tight, so people aren't back in their marketing maybe. But at the same time, it's like that's the time where you really need to step up your marketing is when your revenue is dropping. But for you over the years, I mean, you've been in this for quite 9 years. Even as an actual caller yourself, and even just having as clients, what are some things that have evolved over the last 9 years or so that you've been doing this that have changed in cold calling? Is it like this, like the way you talk to people? Okay, talk to me about that.
So different now. So whenever cold calling was first a new thing, you guys all know Brant Daniels TTP. Well, that's what I was trained on, 9 years ago as a caller. Or close to it. At least I started then. Maybe TTP came out a little bit after, and then I was trained on that for sure in 2018. So Americans were doing this for $20 an hour, 15, $20 an hour. People were hiring Americans to do this. And now it's like a race to the bottom where they want cheaper and cheaper and cheaper cold callers, which has then flooded the airwaves with these calls that almost nobody answers.
Because they can get more volume. They can get more bang for their buck, right?
In volume, yes, but not in qualitative conversations that maybe actually convert.
Sure.
And so what the uphill battle that people are facing now is, well, now no one answers. So it created its own problem. Same thing like with our inflation in our country. It was caused by, too much free money chasing too few goods. Now we had too many of these crappy callers flooding the market. And so now no one answers. And it's because no one answers that now people are forced to use these crappy callers because they're forced to fight the volume game.
Yeah.
But we still offer high quality callers. They are mostly foreign callers, but they're the best. Like, they have minimal accents. They're very well educated. They've been doing this for years and years and years. This is their career. They show up every day. They don't need to be trained. So, so we're trying to bring the best of both worlds in both value and cost. But what's changed is that Americans aren't doing it anymore. It's all either Filipinos. And the AI is just not there yet. People are like, well, Jen, what are you going to do when there's AI? It's like, well, that's why I do lending and data and skip tracing, and God forbid, you can always go and flip too. I'm in Brandon Lindsay's Rehabber's playbook, so I can always pivot in that direction if I need to. But right now, we're in a market where it's easier to find deals than it is to find funding in most markets across the country. So I position myself in a way where I can both do lending and cold calling, because there's going to be markets where it's easy to get lending and not easy to find deals. And then I'm super, super popular for acquisitions. That's whenever you see me speaking all around the country, because nobody else really does what I do to the same extent that I know of anyways. I mean, there may be someone out there, I just don't know them. And so then that's whenever you see me gracing a lot of stages. But right now it's kind of easier to find deals. And so people are needing me more on the funding side. And so that's what's changed, Josh, is that people expect a foreigner whenever they pick up the phone, and they don't even want to pick up the phone. But if they do actually happen to pick up the phone and they hear someone who's intelligent with a minimal accent, they're much more likely to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And there's little tricks we have to use. Like if we're single line dialing, for example, on a follow-up where we do have that prior consent, they have consented to us following up, then we will double and triple dial them. So one of my secrets that's not so secret is I will double dial someone from the same phone number, and then I'll dial them a third time from a phone number from like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, these places people don't often, Alaska even. And I would use something like, a lot of people use smartphone. I don't recommend them. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that. So I still just like good old CallRail, because CallRail is easy and fast to set up, and you can create your phone numbers from anywhere in the country. And so if you use a little app called Lead Center, then your VAs don't have to be, because if you don't use that little app through CallRail, then you have to have a US cell phone, which, your VAs overseas are not going to. So you need to use Lead Center so they can just do that voice over IP right from their computer. So when they're doing follow-up, because, there's lead gen, follow-up, right, is a lead manager / appointment setter, and then you have your acquisitions manager. Those are 3 separate roles, or at least they should be. But we do try to combine cold calling and acquisitions management in our and lead management in our people. So for the lead management, you're going to need a single line dialer. So how do you get through a nation that doesn't want to pick up the phone? You triple dial them, like I said. So I have a script for each time they answer. So let's say someone picks up on the second ring, and it's you, Josh, and you're like, did you just call me 2 times in a row? And I'm like, yeah, Josh, I figured I might have misdialed the first time. I apologize. I'm dyslexic, which is true, right? So, and I'm sorry, I had to redial because I wanted to make sure I got the right phone number. And then I just go right into the script. Nobody has ever stayed mad at me. And then for that third dial, let's say I'm calling from like North Dakota, South Dakota, because they ignored the first 2 calls. So then I hit them with that North Dakota, South Dakota phone number, and they're like, did you just call me those other 2 times? And I say, gosh, it sounds like you're getting a lot of calls. And then I just go straight into the script, right? And nobody's ever stayed mad at me.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to get through for the lead management aspect whenever you're doing the follow-up. Now, for just straight up lead gen, we like to use Batch Dialer. I don't have an affiliate with them. They don't know that I exist, but they're easy to get started with, and they have a high connectivity rate. And they have what's called a reputation management system, where if a number becomes a spam likely phone number, it automatically changes it if you have that $300 a month package. I wish I had an affiliate with them. I would be making a small fortune in passive income with all of my clients that I have on there. But they have not reached out to me for an affiliate yet. So if Batch Dialer is somehow listening, go ahead and reach out to me.
Hey, we know we need people over there. We'll send them. We'll drop them more in. But yeah,
I have like 30. I've signed them up with 30 people just probably in the last, I don't know, 2 months. So, but not everybody uses Batch Dialer. Some people use Mojo, Ready Mode, Call Tools. I haven't had anyone use Call Tools in a long time.
they haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
But then, so I want to go back to You just unloaded a lot of really, really good content there. I want to unpack it a little bit
Okay.
and spend some time doing that. So, go back to, so you mentioned the three. So you have a lead manager, you have your acquisitions person, you have three people that you say that you would want to be in contact on a phone. What were those three again?
Yeah, so you have your lead gen aspect of it. That's going to be your cold caller, right? Then you have your lead manager, who's kind of, think of like the nursery. So we're giving birth, whether you're male or female, we all understand these basic concepts, right? You're giving birth, that's lead gen, right? And then you have the lead manager, that's like the teacher slash daycare. It's a long process. It's like K through 12 or pre-K through 12.
That's the nurturing part of it.
Yeah, these lead managers are probably the most important people in the whole company. Because if you do a good job there, it's going to be easy. It's like a parent who gave up a kid for adoption or something, and then they come back at 12th grade at graduation like, oh man, sure did a good job there. And that's the acquisition managers. You know what I mean? They just show up and close the deal and like, oh, look at me. I mean, the acquisition managers are kind of the rock star of the wholesaling world because they get all the credit for closing the deal and getting the contract signed whenever there's so many other people who did hard work. The person who pulled the data in the skip tracing, which we also do as a complimentary service. If people do hourly with us, we include that. So you don't have to worry about data and skip tracing. And then you have, your team that does the lead gen, and then you have the dispo team. And none of those people really get a lot of credit. It's always the acquisitions managers. Kind of like same thing with Hollywood too. It's like the movie stars get all the credit, but it's the writers, the set people, the director, the producers, right? And so the lead manager is really the person who's doing the heavy lifting and is going to make your company profitable or not. You need a very intelligent, well-trained lead manager, and that's what we provide. I mean, cold calling is easy and closing is easy compared to good lead management.
Now, lead manager, so we've talked about VAs as the actual cold caller that's making that first initial point of contact. But that position that we're talking about now, is that somebody that you advise to have like in-house stateside, or is that still a viable option to have as long as we're obviously hiring correctly, a person that can handle that?
Yeah, all of my really, really smart, we're talking about high IQ, overseas VAs, they're excellent lead managers.
Yeah.
For, probably 1/3 of the price of Americans. Because right now, $90K a year minus taxes is $5,800 a month for an American, which is really just going to pay for your groceries, car note, and mortgage at best, right? So unfortunately, right now, 6 figures is a living wage, which is ridiculous. And most companies can't afford to pay Americans a living wage.
Yep.
And it really is unfortunate. And so with your lead managers, ours are $13.50 an hour, which is really good considering the workload that they do.
Of course. That's great. Interrupting this podcast episode to tell you guys that this podcast is managed and produced by Color Media Productions. Yes, shameless plug, that's my company. However, we do this for a lot of other people as well. Most people that we work with are in the real estate investing space. So if you're listening to this podcast specifically, you probably are a real estate investor, given it's called the REI Marketing Weekly. If you're somebody that either wants to start a podcast or you have one going and it's becoming a little bit of a hassle, you're looking to transition to somebody that works a little bit better with a fluid motion in terms of you get the recordings done and then they do everything else. Well, that's what we do. We do fully managed podcasts from start to finish, video, audio, show noting, the graphics, publishing, everything that goes into it. It's a full service business that we run here in a service for you as a real estate investor if you are running a podcast. Additionally, we also do social media and YouTube management as well. So all of that being on the organic side, if you are interested in learning more about working with us and just recording content with guidance and strategy set by myself personally, and then not doing anything else after that, where we're taking care of everything from start to finish, then make sure you go check us out at colormedia.com, CULLER media.com. Hit us up there and we can learn more about working together, hop on a phone call and see what we could do for you. Now back to the episode. No, I have heard the biggest and best, I shouldn't even say the biggest, the best, most efficient teams that I know from an acquisition standpoint have that set up. Because and maybe even a third layer that's like the actual person that's closing the deal, the salesperson. Because the
I agree with that.
And we've had this conversation before on a previous episode. I can't remember who we had this with, but we talk about how that like constant having to cold call type thing will burn out a very good salesperson. So
I agree.
Agree with
And
that.
you'll get them to quit. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll just straight up quit.
because they just want to close deals. That's the type of person.
Exactly.
Like they're a go-getter. They're somebody that is like they will get the deal done, but in order to follow up, that's going to really burn them out because that's a very repetitive job, right?
It is. And I think that is why it's good to keep it separate. But like I said, that's why I don't feel like acquisitions managers. And look, I was an AM for a really long time. So I know I did all 3 jobs, and I can tell you that the one that actually makes the company the most money is going to be the lead manager. Yeah.
Interesting. No, that's good. That's really, really good insight. So, a couple of questions, and then we'll wrap up here. So, when it comes to the actual, like now we're on the phone, and again, this is where your expertise is going to come into play. We have somebody on the phone. You've started that script. How quickly are you trying to get them to like actually get information and make an offer, or is it a like slow race that you guys are playing? Like, what's that process on the phone call look for you?
So there's no wrong way to do it as long as you're closing. My personal style is slow and circuitous. Some people just go straight for the close, one call close, one call close. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that's something that people sell to sell courses and right? That's from sitting in that seat for all those hours, all those years, and I have had really excellent trainers like Greg Hellback and Jerry Green and John Martinez and many, many others that don't
We're dropping some good INs there. Those are all my buddies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and for good reason, right? And they all know me. And so they knew me back whenever I knew nothing, whenever I was really, really bad at what I did. I mean, I didn't just want them. I needed their help.
Yeah.
And so with that, and none of those guys believe in a one-call close. I can promise you that.
Yep.
But some other people whose names I won't mention, they did, and they would kind of push back on me a little bit. Like, well, we do a one-call close, blah, blah. I'm like, So I've been told anywhere from 5 to 15 touch points. I have followed up with one lady for up to 3 years whenever I was working in the Denver market. And appreciation had finally brought her property up enough to where we could offer her the price that she had stuck in her head. I mean, some people just have a price that's stuck in their head. And if appreciation will finally get them there, they'll do it.
I've never thought of that before. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, the good lead managers just follow up and follow up and follow up and follow up. And it takes a certain type of personality. I liked closing, and I liked lead management too, but lead management is kind of harder to know what to say, right? Because it's like, well, I'm calling you again. How are you doing? And so what I learned was to connect on anything that they had told me. Like there was this one old, African-American gentleman who had bought a new Cadillac. And he was really proud of it. He wanted to sell his property. And so anything they said to me, I would put in the notes. That way I could read it before I called him. And the cadence of a good lead manager is you always do your follow-up calls that day first. And then you kind of go through, your other leads that maybe you didn't have your follow-up scheduled. And so there's this older gentleman with a Cadillac. And I'm like, hey, because they already know why you're calling. You don't have to remind them. That's the good news. They already know why you're calling. So you don't even really have to say anything other than, hey, Josh, man, I was thinking of you in that Cadillac. You been out in it lately? What's going on with you, man? And then see, it's a little bit more friendly. So I would call them like old friends and make them comfortable. And then they usually would bring it up. Well, Jen, I'm getting a little closer to selling. I've got to get through the summer. My grandkids are going to be here with me. And then I'm ready to downsize into the, senior living, mobile home park by the beach. I'm ready to do this. And I'll be like, well, okay, cool. Well, have you visited that mobile home park yet? Like, do you have your kind of hobby staked down the area? You ready to go to the beach every day? Have you been able to visit out there? Because that way I need to get them thinking about what their future actually looks like. I need to get them picturing it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it is a slow and circuitous process. Not as much in commercial, because I do commercial acquisitions as well.
Yeah.
And that's all, it's numbers. Yes. And so I actually like that way better because the numbers are higher, the profits are higher, and I don't have to worry about whether or not people, if I make people feel good about themselves.
Sure.
That's a big part of off-market residential is I have one of my clients is a psychiatrist, and when I describe to him how to talk to them, he's like, it sounds like you're describing how, I talk to my bipolar clients who are off their meds. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mo, that's exactly probably what it's like. And so, yeah, I mean, I have a psychology background, and
I was going to ask about that actually. Do you use that in your conversations that you have?
all day, every day and with myself. Are you kidding me? I'll be sitting down going, oh, I feel depressed, which isn't the norm. And I'm like, okay, why do I feel depressed? So just go down the checklist. All right. Socially, how are you doing? You hanging out with friends? Or are you just isolating and working? Have you been outside? No, you haven't. It's cold and cloudy. And so if I'm depressed, I just go down this checklist of all the things that lead to depression. I'm like, okay, well, you gotta do more cardio. You make some time with friends. Book a flight to Florida just to get some sunshine if you have to. Whatever you do, don't just pop a pill or drink alcohol, right? That's my unsolicited lecture, right? So yes, I do use psychology even on myself.
That's good. No, that's good. We'll have to have you back on another episode to talk specifically about that, because that is always something that fascinates me. I think I think I have a natural knack for it, just the way I talk to people, but I don't have a degree, never learned it or anything like that. So it's always a fascinating topic to have. But we are running out of time here, so I want to wrap up with one more, I guess, like kind of topic that we'll branch into. So when it comes to cold calling, obviously when you're marketing to anybody, and this is cold calling, this is direct mail, this is Facebook ads, anything that has to do with like you going outreach marketing to your leads, data, however you want to say it, is extremely important. I know you are in the data space as well. Talk to us a little bit about how that works in terms of when you're, let's keep it on like the terms of cold calling, like when you're actually pulling lists to actually call these people. What type of systems are you using? How are you getting accurate information to make sure that those lines that you're dropping are like going to pick up and they're active and that sort of thing? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Great question. Usually people ask me about everything but exactly what I do. So it's cool to just get technical instead of just
talking about research.
How I got
there's no what you're an expert in. I got
what it's like being a female entrepreneur and all that. So it's cool to actually talk about the technical aspects of what I do. Nobody ever gets to that. So this part is pretty simple. I try to have very high leverage, simple solutions. So my team will pull anywhere from like IDI, LexisNexis, all the major sources that other people use as well. And all we do is we'll kind of look per state, right? So let's say we're pulling a list in Virginia, maybe Texas, but we'll kind of just look before we actually pull, because they'll let you look kind of what you're pulling before you pull it. And if we're seeing sbcglobal.net emails, for those of us, I mean, I know you're quite a bit younger than me, Josh, but
I'm aware of those though.
When I was a young adult, when I was like 19 and you were 10 or something, sbcglobal.net in 2004 was the hot domain name. And so if I'm seeing those and AOL, then I know that, you know what? Hotmail.
I had a Hotmail growing up in high school.
Sure.
I'm aware.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think my first one was Hotmail. Now I had to think back to the year 2000. And if we're seeing those emails, we're going to look at another source. Right? So we want to see Gmails. We want to see people's work domains, like mine's janetreiDatasource.net. I mean, that's clearly a business domain. You know what I mean? So we're looking for Gmail. We're looking for business domains. We're looking for, maybe iCloud or something like that, stuff that, people actually have, and not, Hotmail or Yahoo or AOL.
That's just because you want to make sure it's up to date, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly right.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So, like after that, now you have collected that information. Now it's time to plug it in to actually make the contact.
That's right. And in fact, most dialers are going to show you what percentage are DNC. So we do run all of our data and skip tracing through the DNC and litigator list, because we don't want to invite any problems. We just want to have a smooth running business. And look, if you were to look me up on Upwork, you would see that I have literally hundreds of clients. None of them have ever been popped by DNC or a litigator list. Now, I've heard plenty of stories of realtors who've had that problem.
Sure.
But none of my clients have had that problem. So it can always happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to have to wrap up here. I definitely would love to have you back to have a little bit more conversation to explore your expertises and what you're excellent in the marketing and sales world. Obviously, we're just kind of skimming the surface here after 9 years of experience. We're only packed about 30 minutes into there. So anyway, if somebody did want, first of all, I appreciate your time and being willing to hop on here and deliver some value. But if somebody did want to learn more about working with you, get in contact with you, what's the best way to make that happen?
Yeah, so everyone is welcome to email me at Jen, Jen, at reidatasource.net. And again, that's Jen at reidatasource.net. Or you can follow me on Facebook. As Josh knows, I'm a pretty prolific business poster because I feel like Facebook is like a drip campaign that we kind of all opt into past a certain point. I don't know what the young folks.
I've never heard it said that way. That's a really, really good analogy.
I made it up myself, but I doubt I'm the first person who had that thought, right?
I'm going to give you credit for that. I never thought of it that way. That is awesome.
Yeah, you have to be entertaining, and that's a show. The show must go on. So it's facebook.com/elite deal finder / And yeah, we try to keep it entertaining. We try to keep it informative. I feel like PBS sometimes, it's like I got to keep it informative, but I also have to keep it entertaining.
Sure. Well, we'll have all those linked down in the description below, so you guys can go check that out. Jennifer, last question on that is, so that's how to get in contact with you. Specifically, what services do you offer? If you want to get in contact with you, what do you offer?
Yeah, so I do acquisitions in terms of both the finding and funding of deals. So specifically cold calling, lead management. We'll say light acquisitions management. We can do soft closing. And then data and skip tracing. I have my license with EXP so that I'm able to refer deals to realtors across the country. So you're welcome to join me at EXP. If you need to monetize your retail leads, that's what I do. And then I'm also a lender, DSCR, commercial, cash out refi. I am with ComLoan. And so if you're a commercial lender out there and you need a tool where you can pull from hundreds of lenders in about 5 minutes, ComLoan is great for that. And so I build teams for both EXP and ComLoan. But it's all fueled by being really excellent at finding deals for people. So, it's you have to find a lot of deals to make the rest of the cross-pollination of these businesses work. So that's still always going to be my main bread and butter.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, guys. All of that will be linked down in the description below, so do make sure you check that out and get in contact with Jennifer. I appreciate your time, and I definitely look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you as well. It's been great.
Absolutely. Guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Once again, do make sure to check out all those links to connect with Jennifer. Follow her on Facebook. I follow her on Facebook and see all her content. It's all very, very good stuff. And then also make sure to hit her up on email if you wanted to explore some options of working with her. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the show. Share this around with some friends if they need some marketing and sales tips as a real estate investor. And we got some really, really great interviews that are coming up as well. So make sure you do follow me on social media as well. Facebook, Instagram, Josh Culler. I am verified. So go check that out. Send me a direct message. Let me know that you're listening to the podcast and interested and having some good times, right? Thank you so much for listening and joining us today. And we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
Thank you, Josh.